What up? Welcome to a bonus edition of Calling the Field Stands. We just wrapped up recording episode 4, and we're going to drop this bonus episode, and we might do it on a weekly basis, just recapping the Browns, what we saw, what we expect, what we hope and need to see in the weeks ahead. They had a big game against the Rams Sunday Night Football a couple days ago. I was out in the stands getting my heart broken per usual. But Jeff, we've had a couple days to kind of, absorb everything that we saw Sunday night. It is now Tuesday evening, so a couple days removed. Gather our thoughts a little bit. Kind of, what is your 2 days removed reaction to what you saw Sunday night over at First Energy Stadium, downtown Cleveland? I
like recapping these games, a day or two later, because your emotions are kind of lowered a little bit. You're not like, we are so fucked.
If we would have recorded this podcast that night, as we were kind of going back and forth texting, it would be probably a much different tone and much different conversation than being this 2 days removed.
No doubt. So
I was fired up, bro.
Yeah,
I was fired up.
Trust me, I was too. So start with the biggest positive out of the game. Obviously, going into the game, we knew we were up against a bunch of injuries, really on the entire roster, but particularly 4 starting DBs out for the game, up against a prolific offense.
Last time I checked, base defense, you only have 4 DBs.
Yeah.
That's our whole starting secondary.
Yeah.
Out.
Yeah.
Fuck me.
Absurd. How often does that happen?
Right.
So, I was really nervous about giving up a lot of passing yards, and then from that, we're playing on our heels and Todd Gurley feasting because of that. However, the defense came to fucking play, bro. Our defensive line is legit. Since we've been able to watch and understand football, this has to be our best defensive line unit.
I don't think it's even close. I mean, the only other time that we even had a legitimate team in the last, 15 years was 2007 and the 110 games, and that was only because they were putting up 50 points a game, and their defense wasn't very good. I don't think it's a hard stretch to say this is the best defense we've seen maybe ever. Maybe since we've been with the Browns unit.
So, that was really encouraging to see. Obviously we acquired Sheldon Richardson. Loved that signing. Him and Ogunjobi in the middle is awesome. And then obviously Olivier Vernon is pretty good off the edge. And Myles Garrett on the other side is a total monster.
Yeah, he's going to push for that Defensive Player of the Year for sure. He's the real deal, obviously. Olivier Vernon, I don't really think has the statistics. I don't even know if he even has a second. I think he might have one. But he's really not putting up the numbers in that regard, but he's getting pressure, play in and play out. Myles Garrett is on another planet with his ability to get off the edge. Jumping into my conversation, don't want to cut you off, but my reaction is kind of similar to yours. I remember walking up to the stadium, my wife and I looked over. She was like, getting hype, and I was like, yeah, this would be a miracle if we win this fucking game.
Right.
So the fact that they, lost by only a touchdown and came so close to scoring and forcing overtime unless they wanted to go for 2 and straight up go for the win right then, which honestly I think Freddie might have done. It would have been interesting. He might not. There was some press conference action where he talked about, the question was asked and he kind of joked like, aha, wouldn't you want to know what I would have done? Almost insinuating like he would have went for it. I don't really think he did, particularly because of how that defense was playing. Even if they don't get the ball, but at the same time, the offense was sputtering for most of the game. So who knows really what would have happened? I wouldn't have been upset if they would have lost the game because they went for 2 and they didn't get it. But it's a heartbreaking fashion the way it ended. But with my expectations going into the game, I can't really be too upset about it. And you talked about the offense looking like not the greatest. I think you did mention that, unless that was before we cut the mics on. But I know we'll get into that, in depth on what we saw from the offense and Baker Mayfield in particular. But overall, my reaction a couple days removed, like I said, starting off Sunday night and even Monday morning, I was still fuming just at how the whole game shaped out. They looked like shit on offense. The play calling was horrendous. particularly the headline grabbing things that happened of the 4th and 9 draw play that we saw, which apparently we saw the stat. I'm sure you saw it as well on Twitter and everywhere else, of since they've been tracking stats since 2012, that's the first time any team has ever ran a draw play on 4th and 9 in the history of the game. So good on you, old Freddie Kitchens. I guess if it works, he looks like a fucking genius. But then you match that up with him at 1st and goal from the 5 with needing a touchdown to force overtime under a minute, and you run 3 no running back sets, 1 running back set where it's a tight formation, and literally put 12 guys basically in the box because everybody's so tight with that 1 running back in shotgun. Run 0 run plays, throw it 4 times straight, don't get in the end zone. All of that, like I said, really pissed me off and got me fired up right after the game. But looking back, taking a step back, we talked about your thoughts of, winning ugly or losing pretty. And, at the end of the day, it's still a game. It's still one game. So it's still one loss. We didn't have so many high expectations of, they're going to go in and win. If they lose by, okay, let's say they don't get that turnover at the end of the game and the Rams go in and score, go up 14, we lose by 2 touchdowns. Instead, we get the ball back on a turnover, drive down the field, get to the 5, and sputter out and lose. It's a little bit harder, but at the same time, it's still just one loss in a game that we weren't really penciling in and expecting a win. So that's kind of my initial reactions to the whole thing, and we can break down a little bit what we kind of saw and what we kind of see ahead of what needs to change, obviously. What are your thoughts right after that conversation we just had? What do you got first up?
It is good that with those injuries, we went toe-to-toe with a team like the Rams.
That went to the Super Bowl last year.
Yeah. So, we were right there. We were right there on the goal line at the end of the game to at least tie it up. The huge problem I have, and you kind of brought up our discussion on the last episode, is our offense has not looked like the offense we saw under Kitchens and Baker last year during the first 2 weeks. So now we come into this game worried about our defensive secondary. Then we see the game play out, and the defense plays as good as they could, given the circumstances. Defensive line balls out. We forced 3 turnovers against the Rams, won the turnover battle. You would have expected going into this season with Kitchens, Baker, their performance last year, the acquisition of, obviously, Odell Beckham, Nick Chubb, year older, Baker, year older. You would have thought they would have been able to take the ball and win the game with it in their hands. Instead, the offensive issues continue into week 3. I did see more RPO plays, those quick reads where Baker can get deliver the ball out quickly, and those were almost all successful. Anytime I saw any sort of quick read for Baker to deliver the ball, he was money. And that's when the offense started to click. We did get Nick Chubb going a little bit there. He rushed for about 96 yards. So there were some improvements on offense, but at the same time, this offense is not the same that we saw in our Kitchens last year.
Yeah, real quick to talk about the offense. Obviously, you mentioned and that's kind of what I was harping for before the game, is finding ways to get the ball out of his hands quickly, doing some of those short routes, get the ball in your playmakers' hands quickly, let OBJ make plays like he took that 89-yarder against the Jets. And you talk about RPO, that's another thing I was hoping to see, and we did. And it was another stat, speaking of the 4th and 9 draw play statistic, another stat that's kind of was spread out widely on the talk shows and on social media was, at the time and then stat was shown on TV, I believe it was. I didn't see it on TV. I kind of just heard people talking about it, obviously, because I was at the game. But they said at the time, when Baker got the ball out of his hand under 2.5 seconds, he was 12 for 13 passing. And when it was over 2.5 seconds, he was 2 for 12 or something like that. So obviously, he's getting those short, quick hitters is what's being successful. And when you look at the overall offense, yes, if they all have all these playmakers, you expect to see something out of them. You expect to see an offense at least at least do what you saw at the end of last year under Kitchens, if not even improve better with the addition of OBJ. But the thing that you might overlook, and we really have to take a look at, is the fact that the offensive line is atrociously bad. And I think last year, a part of that, of why they were so successful, which they didn't have a very good offensive line last year either, is because of those quick hitting plays, because of that RPO, getting the ball out of Baker's hands quickly, running the rock. And that's kind of what we saw a little bit in parts of the game against the Rams. And I think the one drive when they really did all those, I remembered, I think it was a couple RPOs in a row, got the run game, a couple quick hitters. They went all the way down the field, scored a touchdown, and that was really the only drive where we saw sustained quick-hitting plays. So I think the loss of the game, yes, it's on Freddie Kitchens because his play calling was abysmal. Baker's getting a lot of heat right now, and I wouldn't say that it's not warranted, but at the same time, I don't really have, too much worries that Baker's not going to be able to get it together and improve. But the offensive line is very, very bad, and I don't really see any fixes to it. So hopefully Freddie is able to adjust and find ways to improve the offense, knowing that your offensive line is shit.
Yeah, I mean, last year, and you see it with the Chiefs offense, there's a lot of action pre-snap, guys going in motion, creating deception, getting the defense to focus on that guy in motion. They put Juice in motion a lot last year. Creating those quick hitter plays to get the ball out and into the hands of playmakers. Mahomes isn't 100% launching the ball downfield for a lot of his yards and successful plays. That offense has a quick pace, and they scheme open receivers for him to deliver the ball to. So far this year, we have a lot of long developing plays. Like you said, offensive line isn't all that great.
It's just not good. It's arguably one of the worst in the league, I mean, they got some good guys on there.
And it's more so from the tackles. I mean, J.C. Treader is one of the highest graded centers in the league.
And I was going to say him. Joel Petonio is all pro.
Cush has actually graded pretty decent this year at right guard.
I liked what I saw from him, in the preseason, and I, had faith that he would be able to hold his own at guard. But the tackle position is really where it all comes together or falls apart. And our tackles are bad.
They're awful.
They're very, very bad.
The pressure mainly came from, obviously, the best player in the league, wherever he was lined up. Fowler is also really good off the edge. But
their defense is stacked.
No, it's still really
good.
It's a
stout D. And, yeah, we would hope to see, at least thus far through the season, some better offensive play. But like I said, we've been improving from week 1 to 2 to 3. We need to take that next step again and do it. But I wanted to go and touch real quickly on just the whole play development kind of comment that we've been talking about the long plays and long developing plays. I think it's a matter of setting up for those opportunities. Like you said, Pat Mahomes isn't just chucking the ball downfield every time, but he's getting big plays frequently because everything else that offense is able to do. I looked into it a little bit, and on so far through the season, on pass plays 20 or more yards downfield, Baker is 6 for 12, and then from 15 yards or more, he's 11 for 22. So 50% for both of those. That's not terrible statistics. When he's getting the ball downfield, he's getting it in decent opportunities. I think he's got 4 picks now, and 3 of them are within 10 yards, and 1 is longer than 10 yards. But overall, his completion percentage is about 58%. So he's not even that significantly overall better than his percentage at 20 plus downfield. So we need to find ways to get the offense, not see it as, okay, this is a chance we want to take a shot because we need some chunk yards, or I just have a hunch. We need to set up more run game, more play action to get deep balls, find those one-on-one opportunities, and do a 3-step drop fade to OBJ, which we haven't seen all season. The offense that I've seen struggle is not, in my opinion, Baker Mayfield's fault in his play. There is some reason. There is some blame, and blame might not be the right word, but there's some credit due to Baker for the fact that he's not getting the job done as well as he should be. He is missing throws. There was stats out there about him bailing out of the pocket when he shouldn't be bailing out of the pocket. But a lot of that is stemmed from play calling and play calling evolution through the game, I think, is the key. Like being able to adjust, being able to set up certain aspects of what you want to get done. And, okay, we want to get one-on-one opportunities, or we want to find man-on-man with OBJ in the slot. How do we build and get opportunities instead of just thinking, oh, this would be a good opportunity to get OBJ in the slot? Well, if you haven't developed the offense earlier in the game to kind of set some of that stuff up, whether it's through run game, whether it's through spreading the ball out on quick hitters, different things that Freddie should be able to develop and do, you can't just throw a play out there and not have actually done the work into getting that to become successful. So that's where the blame to me goes all on Freddie. He was taking, all the blame in the press conferences, which good on him. We never saw that in the past from a former coach that I won't name. So hopefully we see some adjustment and some more sophistication of an offense coming as a whole game. Like, I think he's just calling plays rather than calling a game.
Right.
If that makes sense.
No, it does make sense. It's a good way to describe it. The Rams offense is so effective because, they're not hell-bent on, we need to establish a run, or, we need to establish the pass to help the run. They marry the two types together. So they'll give run action, then they'll give play action off that run action to the opposite side of the field and throw from it. I mean, there's a rhythm to their offense consistently throughout the entire game. With the Browns, you just don't feel that that sort of rhythm that we had last year under Kitchens. So, and I do agree with your assessment on, Baker, maybe hasn't looked as sharp as he should, but at the same time, I don't think our offense is helping him at all. So I really do think the majority of the blame should go on Kitchens, and he needs to figure out what is wrong and right this ship, because
and I mean, it's not only just blame though. I mean, we still got to look at the fact that yes, we have high expectations. Yes, he called 8-9 games last year after Haley and them got fired, but he's still a rookie head coach. This is his first time putting everything together. So as much as we want to see a rookie quarterback kind of develop through a season and figure out how to read defenses or put an offense together and execute, I want to see that same progression from a new rookie head coach to be able to work all the aspects of a game that he's now managing together and work that through a season. It's just kind of a little bit unfortunate of the schedule that we have ahead, being that we have all these tough games where it's going to be difficult to, squeak a win that we may otherwise deserve to lose because they're playing an inferior team and, the coach fucks up, but we end up getting a win anyways. So we cannot really overlook the fact that Freddie is a rookie and it's a young team. There are some veterans, obviously, but it's still overall a young team, and I'm hoping to see kind of things come together a little bit. Let's talk about what you hope to see change. Obviously, we talked about some adjustments that we want to see in the offense, but we have some tough games ahead. The Ravens this week, and I mean that's another thing. We talk about it just being one game. You win this weekend, you're tied for the division lead, and actually
you
ahead.
Take the lead.
Ahead because you have the tiebreaker, being that 1-0 against the Ravens head to head. So you win this upcoming weekend, you take the lead of the division. Being that said, we got the Ravens, 49ers. Following that week, I think it is the Seahawks, and then it's another tough game after that.
We get a bye after that. I think
bye,
then
then the Patriots. Okay, so that was the 5. It was Rams, Ravens, 49ers in there. Monday night, Seahawks, Pats.
Yep.
A lot of undefeated teams in that mix, especially when we play them. So what do you kind of expect or hope to see, or what do you need to see, at least record-wise, and some games that need to go our way? What do you see as an outlook over the next 4 weeks against, what is it, a 4-0 Patriots, or a 3-0 Patriots, a 3-0 Niners,
both 2-1 Ravens,
2-1
Seahawks.
Ravens, who their only losses to the Chiefs, even though their only 2 wins were against trash.
Yeah,
and then the Seahawks 2-1 as well. What is kind of your outlook over the next few weeks, and what do you need to see heading into this weekend and beyond.
The outlook of those next games, I mean, ideally, you somehow find a way to go 500 in that stretch.
Over the next four?
I know it's daunting, but that way,
doable.
That way you're only staying one game below 500. You can't get too far away from that 500 mark if you want to push for the playoffs, because now you're talking about rattling off, 3+ straight wins, and that is not easy in the NFL unless you're a team like the Patriots or the Chiefs.
Yeah, and like we talked about in our episode 4 earlier this evening, their second half of their schedule is significantly easier. You got 4 in-conference games against teams that have yet to win a game, being the Steelers and the Bengals. So this is the tough part of the schedule. So going 500, while it is tough, if you do that, you set yourselves up for a little bit of a run. But before I kind of jump in with my thoughts, I'm gonna let you finish your thoughts on the next couple weeks, and then we'll also break down and get into this upcoming Sunday against the Ravens.
So we already harped on the offense. I don't really have any concerns about the defense moving forward. Especially versus
my doubt.
Yeah, especially against the Patriots offense is prolific, but the Seahawks, Niners, Ravens, it's not like their offense is proven to be prolific versus the better teams. So I'm not really too worried about the defense, worried about the offense improving week to week. They have got to show signs of improvement. If they do not over the next 2 games, that's when I think, and deservedly so, people are going to start really getting concerned about what we have this year. However, I really do still think we have too much talent on offense for it to remain the same that we've seen the first 3 weeks. There's just no excuse for it. So I think Freddie is, like you said, he's a rookie head coach. He's still, he's trying to balance managing the game and calling the game. Last year, he's only worried about calling the offense. So there might be a little bit of juggling there he's getting used to. So like you alluded to, as long as we're improving and building on what we have, I think we'll be in good shape. But it's okay to talk about it, and it's okay for him to own up and be accountable.
Right.
Got to see action. Got to see improvement against the Ravens.
Yeah. And I mean, we talk about, Freddie being a rookie coach, and the one positive I think of what we've seen is that improvement from each week from the coaching aspect. I mean, there was some big blunders, I think, can be said. But the fact that the defense is balling out, especially with the injuries and with that adversity that they've been able to overcome, I think that's a testament to what Freddie's done. He should be getting a lot of credit for that. Obviously, he calls the plays, so a lot of the focus is there for the fact that they're not really producing much success, really flying the way that we see they should with the playmakers that they have. But if he continues to improve, and I think he will, and what he's shown me from a head coaching perspective, getting respect from the locker rooms, taking the ownership, holding people accountable. He's not throwing guys under the bus, but he's, letting people know that it's unacceptable what we've seen so far, and it's unacceptable from him as well. So I think, with what I've seen and kind of the expectations coming into the season, I think he'll be able to kind of get things in the right direction and continue to improve, which I think is the most important thing. There was a little bit of conversation about Munkin taking over the play calling, and he kind of laughed in the press conference, and I think rightfully so, and kind of said, I don't know that he laughed, but he firmly said, there is no shot that I'm giving over my play calling duties, which I think is the right way to handle it. He didn't beat around the bush. He just said, fuck you, I call the plays. He was hired to call the plays. He was hired to be head coach and lead, and that is rightfully so what he has said. And it was, did you get a chance to see that Mike Tirico Baker interview?
No, I didn't.
It was pretty good. Tirico, who is a legend of an interviewer and as a journalist.
Great play-by-play.
He is one of the best, to be honest. He's up there as maybe my favorite guy who's on TV doing sports right now. But he straight up asked a question of Baker. It's actually a really good interview. You should go check it out. He asked him, did you give your opinion or make your opinion known to the front office of who you wanted to be as head coach. And Baker kind of sat back and kind of smiled, and he more or less just said, people around that building knew my opinion. So he didn't really go out and say it, but he said it in other ways, or, guys knew his thoughts on the whole situation and knew what he thought. And I'm sure they knew what he thought about Hugh. I'm sure they knew what he thought about Greg Williams and what he wanted to see. And it was pretty obvious that he, wanted Freddie to be the next head coach because of what he saw in him, the chemistry that the two of them have. And I think that's going to kind of set the tone and lead the way for the whole team to kind of keep making incremental steps, getting better every day, getting better every week to continue to improve. And as we look ahead, like you said, 50-50 or 500 ball, splitting those 2-2 games, against these next couple opponents, which are some of the best in the league, particularly the Patriots. I mean, they can win some of these games. There's no doubt about it. We look directly ahead to the Ravens. Everybody talks about how great the Ravens defense is, and I think we were looking at some preseason stuff about how they were ranked as the number one secondary in the league, and I kind of called bullshit on that, and there's no way I kind of laughed at the fact that people were saying that. I mean, when you look at the stats, the Ravens overall in yardage are 16th in the league, and when you look at their opponents, they played the Miami Dolphins, the Arizona Cardinals, and obviously the Chiefs are legit, but two opponents who aren't very good, and they're in the middle of the pack on giving up yards. And when you look at passing yards against, 6th worst in the league in passing yards per game. So what does that say about the secondary? I don't know. Maybe nothing. Maybe I'm just looking too much into these statistics, but they are giving up 6th most passing yards per game when two of their opponents are a rookie in Kyler Murray and the Miami Dolphins, who will win 0 games. So I think that's a game that can be won. Everybody looks at the Ravens as the leaders of the division and leading the way, but I think this is a winnable game. What do you think about this upcoming game before I kind of break down what I see or why I think it's going to be a winnable game?
I think it's also a winnable game because of what you just alluded to. Their secondary and their back seven in general isn't what it was last year. With players like Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry, there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to go into that game and execute some plays and get some favorable matchups to deliver the ball to those two and allow them to make plays. There's no reason why we can't get Nick Chubb going on the ground and really put together a well-balanced offensive attack against this defense. And then on the flip side, I love our defense against the Ravens. Lamar Jackson can definitely make plays with his legs. He may have shown signs of improvement with his arm this year. Tough to judge through the first 2 weeks, and then against the Chiefs, they put some points on the board in the fourth quarter. But
yeah, and I watched the tail end of that game. The score is very deceptive on how that game actually played out. Someone might pull up the score and say, "Oh, they only lost by 5," but that last drive, I mean, and especially if you look at the stats, the final drive, the Chiefs are up 11 or so, something like that, and it was 4 minutes, 5 minutes to go, and they really played back all their back defense. Lamar had probably 50 yards in passing yardage with a ball that he didn't throw more than 2 yards beyond the line of scrimmage, and then ultimately had a scrambling touchdown where he went for about 10 or so yards and got the touchdown there, and they ended up losing by 5. So you take away those dunk yardage at the end of the game, plus his rushing touchdown, and his statistics were not all that good. There's people talking about him being in the NFL MVP conversation after the first couple weeks of playing the Miami Dolphins and the Arizona Cardinals. I mean, obviously, like you said, he has improved a little bit with his arm, but I don't think he is improved enough to even be in a conversation as one of the top guys in the league. And I think when we go into this week, from the Browns defense perspective, you put some pressure on him. He's going to need to force throws, and he's going to make some bad throws. And if you can contain his run, and hopefully Mac will Mac Wilson and his athleticism will be able to contribute a little bit to that. Schobert has really balled out a little bit. We're going to need to rely on some linebacker play to contain Lamar a little bit. If you can do all that, I'm not really concerned about Mark Ingram. I'm not really concerned about any of their playmakers on the outside. You contain the legs of Lamar Jackson, force him into pressure, and I think from a defensive perspective, you should be able to dominate that half of the ball. And then offensively, from the secondary of the Ravens, it has some holes. Everyone talks about how it's the best secondary in the league. I still don't buy that. You can run the rock, hopefully, get that going with Chubb, and that should open things up on the outside. And I think the Browns are going to win this game. What are your thoughts on the confidence level you have heading into week 4 with the Browns?
Heading into week 4.
And then just overall over the next couple weeks. We talk about, if they go 500 in the next 4 games, that'll really set them up. But what's your confidence level as we head into those 4, and particularly this week?
My confidence level on them going 2-2 over these next 4 is still high. Which games we win, which we drop, I mean, it's kind of a toss-up for me, to be honest with you. The NFL, week-to-week matchups, any team can take down another team. I'd like for one of those wins to be this weekend. Baltimore, bounce back from an emotional loss, show that you've made improvements on the offense. It's a winnable game. Show that you're not fucking around. We're here to take the division.
Setter.
You know what I mean?
Tone setter for sure, bro.
It is a tone setter. So I totally agree. I think our defense can bring it again this week, and I'd like to think we, when healthy, we have a lot more talent than the Chiefs, especially on the D-line. So I'd like to see our D-line feast on Baltimore and show Lamar, look, I want to show him that he hasn't seen the speed and talent on the defensive line yet. So I don't know. My confidence level on this game, I'm kind of like 50-50, to be honest. I'm not going into this game thinking this is for sure a no-doubter, going to be a win. Had the offense played better the first 3 weeks. We didn't lead the league in penalties, which is another huge issue we didn't really touch on just yet, but I'd be a little more confident. But it's a winnable game. There's no doubt about that. I really like our talent and matchups against the Ravens. I think they can definitely come out and win, but it's not like the Ravens aren't a good team, despite who their 2 wins were against, and the Browns have their own issues themselves. So
yeah, for sure. And my confidence level, I'm pretty confident. Like, I'm pulling up the spread here because I might have to put some money on the Browns. I don't know. Maybe it's just because of our conversation right now, and I want to feel that they're going to win. But I think that they really have a good shot to, like I said, set the tone for the division, stop and slow down the offense of the Ravens, which, you look at some of these power rankings, they have the Ravens in the top 10. I think they're a fraud team at this moment. They will win some games, obviously, particularly in the division that is not very good, excluding the Browns. I don't really buy into the whole Ravens being one of the better teams in the league. Their offense has some holes. Their quarterback isn't the greatest at throwing the ball, which last time I checked in the NFL, quarterbacks throw. So, you contain his legs, force some pressure on him. You should have a really good day on the defensive side of the ball, force some turnovers. And then offensively, if you can kind of get things clicking a little bit, get some touchdowns early, I think they're going to win this game. Looking ahead to that, 49ers, 3-0. Not really sold on the Niners. They beat the Steelers after turning the ball over like 4 times in the first quarter and a half or something like that. They are susceptible to some big plays, as we saw Juju go for, I forget how many yards, but he had a big bomb touchdown. They're susceptible to some big plays. Their offense, I'm not really sold on being very good. They don't have a whole lot of playmakers. Jimmy G isn't all that special. I think he's a little overrated. And then the Seahawks is obviously another winnable game, in my opinion. The Patriots going to be tough. They might not lose a regular season game. So
I'm chalking that one off.
Yeah, let's
to a lot. So these next 3, like I said, obviously the preference is to come out and set the tone in the division and beat Baltimore.
It's a huge game. I mean, looking ahead to looking ahead to the game, I think they're going to win and all that. But if they lose, looking ahead to the rest of the season, you start 3-1. You got 3 more tough games that are going to be really challenging, particularly the Patriots after the bye week. this is, it's hard to say must win, especially when it's only the fourth week of the season. But this is the biggest game of Freddie Kitchens and Baker Mayfield and all them guys' careers, to be honest. Myles Garrett.
If they want to be taken seriously, then hell yeah, it's a huge game.
Especially after almost beating the Rams. And the way that kind of fell at the end of the game and almost got there but didn't. This is the biggest game of these guys' careers to this moment. And if they want to show that they're for real, they got to go get the job done and put up a performance that is showing the league, we are here, we're for real. The hype is not just hype. It's legit. So, and I think, with Baker at the helm, he's going to get that job done. And I think we're going to see a big step, and the offense is going to look very good, and the defense is just going to continue to dominate as they have in the last few weeks.
I'd love it. Leave no doubt.
Enjoying this episode. I like this bonus. I think we'll probably, like I mentioned, continue to do these as a little breakdown, more in depth on our favorite team, and keep that whole long conversation out separate from our main show. So I'm looking forward to next week breaking down the Ravens game, seeing if our predictions came to fruition, see if our expectations of what we want to see and what we need to see come through. So I'm looking forward to this Sunday, looking forward to next week, and looking forward to continuing this podcast.
Absolutely, man. Go Browns.
All right, bro. Peace.